All right, we're back for a little JavaScript stream. We're picking up, I think, where I left off in the last stream, which is working on adding streaming LLM inference to uh, our JavaScript sandbox. The idea behind the sandbox is that I want to have LLMs generate JavaScript code, execute it in a sandbox, and that basically being all we need to do everything that, say, like MCPs can be doing, but also as a foundation to build like a self-contained app that allows us to marry the best of a chat-based interface and standard UIs. So in a way, you can think of it, what I want to build is kind of like Replit in a single binary, right? So that you can do your usual chat stuff. You can interact with all kinds of third-party services like GitHub, like Dropbox, like Drive, like all kinds of things that MCPs support. But also at the same time, do something like Claude Artifacts, self-contain and snapshot them. But these artifacts are able to use all the imported, I'm going to call them MCPs in this case, like all the imported functionality. So you can chat with GitHub, you can chat with GitHub and this will like run JavaScript to query stuff from GitHub, but you can also generate a UI, like an application that will interact with GitHub bypassing the LLM, and then snapshot that, and the next time you reopen the app, you have your whole GitHub session set up. So the idea here is that often when you use MCPs, you actually want to do something that is repeatable, right? Like if I have a GitHub MCP, often I just want to say like, oh, let's browse the issues, right? Why would I need to call the LLM to do that? I don't. I just want to have like a nice little UI where I can select the issues. And then when I select an issue, however, that puts me back into the chat mode and then I can do things with the issue. So that's what I want to build. And as I tend to do, I'm over-engineering the thing instead of having fun with it. So I am adding event-driven concurrency to our sandbox. The thing is that my my LLM framework uses events to do everything that's streaming inference. And I obviously want in JavaScript to have a nice interface to this streaming inference because I don't just want my JavaScript sandbox to hang while I'm waiting for like a couple of bytes over HTTP. So I'm not a great JavaScript developer. I'm using a JavaScript sandbox that is like JavaScript ECMAScript 5.1. So there's a certain set of primitives we can use to do concurrency, so promises, and we can do callbacks. But I have to figure out how do I bridge my event-driven concurrency in Golang, right, which is Go routines based, and I'm using the Watermill framework, and how do I connect that to ultimately my JavaScript sandbox and work with LLM calls. So last time I did that, I kind of like just let Amcode rip. I didn't, without really knowing what how everything should work. That didn't work out all that great because at some point I just had like no idea what was going on, which is fine. Like I think it's always worth like just trying things out and then seeing how far you get, especially in our new world where learning how far you get will tell you what you actually don't know, right? Like if Amcode is starting to do things and I can't manage to do this right. Hey, Andrew, how's it going? Sorry, where was I? Yeah, so if you ask an agent to just like YOLO it, right? Like I just said, like add streaming JavaScript LLM calls, and then kind of see what like a big mixture comes out. You might get some ideas doing that, but also it will tell you, well, maybe it just works and it's elegant and you understand it and you're like, okay, cool, that was great. Or it's like a big mess as it was in our case, which might tell you, look, you know, maybe you should learn the fundamentals here and like kind of figure it out before going back. So that's what I did. And the way I did it is I used ChatGPT as I am wont to do. And I, no, this is not it. I am, let me see, holy shit, I already did so much stuff. So I did a deep research on Goja and how you can use that to do concurrency with it. So I first did an O3 search because I wanted to quickly see what was available, right? So it told me, and this is, you have to be careful with O3 because there sometimes are hallucinations, and I'm starting to get a feel on how to recognize them. So I think there's one over here that I want to point attention to. It properly found out the Node.js event loop, which I already knew, right? And then I think it mentioned that we can have an asynchronous iterator. Maybe that was like in a previous research, but it like basically made up something that makes sense, but was ECMAScript 6 and is not supported by Goja. Here in this case, maybe I did it in Claude. I don't really remember, but I know that I was like, this doesn't really fully pass the smell test because I was hoping that I could find it to just like point out where the smell test might be. The secret sauce behind MCode, I think they have good prompts for their tools. I think they don't over-engineer the tools the way, or I don't know exactly. I think their code search sub-agent is also a big one. But at this point, I'm not fully sure, and I haven't like given it much thought anymore. I do definitely want to go back and take a look once I'm, stop getting distracted doing like stuff like this and actually build an agent one day, because I don't think I've really built my own agent except for work, which is sad, which is really sad. But I don't really know. To be honest, I'm also like a little bit annoyed by MCode. I hope they're actually watching. The documentation is garbage, right? Yet it is so easy to use MCode to do great documentation. So, but you can literally point it at a repo and say like, make a nice tutorial and a nice README, document like the config file things, and then they have this like JSON format output to like, do kind of like a Claude Code SDK kind of thing. And it's like, I can't do anything with it. It just like doesn't give me, a bidirectional thing so I can approve tool calls or so. I don't know. I know they added like language server stuff as well. I think they have a lot of things that are targeted towards specific language. I've seen Cursor start doing things like this, but I think maybe in AmpCode they have that in the prompts to say like use GoDoc when you're writing in Go, those kinds of things that are easy to add to your agent MD, and ultimately the agent MD is what they need to do a lot of what makes the agent good. I think I'm kind of like out of my depth here also, to be honest, right? Yeah, the results are pretty amazing. I wonder where it's going to go, because I feel like the sub-agent concept is actually quite tricky. And on my last stream, I showed like basically what I'm building right now, how elegant this could probably be. And of course, I need to test it and for real. So, which is that, sub-agents are just like a way of doing context management and parallelizing work so that you can leverage multiple HTTP calls to the LLM model to basically reduce latency, but also increase throughput, right? If there are things that you can do in parallel on the same code base, then might as well do them in parallel. So that it goes faster, or so that it uses less tokens, or so that it's like all these techniques ultimately are standard concurrent programming patterns plus how to manage shared context, right? Because the shared context being the code base in a way, but also like the context that is needed for the current work that we have to do to be done, and how to distribute it amongst agents, but also once agents do their work, how to bring this context back to other agents. And I'm using the word agent here. Maybe the better way of doing it is like, where do you get the value from concurrent HTTP calls? Because that's ultimately what it is, right? It's like the reason we do sub-agents is just so that we can both minimize our context use, but also maximize the compute return on like the amount of value we get from the compute. So I'm very, very, very excited about getting there. But first, we have to do this like boring shit. So where was I? So just to show you, since I now have like a pretty good idea of how this works, but also I am not really confident in my knowledge either. Let's go take a look, and then maybe through explaining it, I'll get a better insight into it. So actually, it's something I should do. I should just like use one of the models and just have it do my standard learning stuff, which is cosplay a classroom. Actually, let's do that. So I think I like doing this in Claude just because uploading files is a little easier. I don't even know if uploading files is that much easier. So I started this on the 15th, add streaming JS support, excuse me. And then if I go into Geppetto and I add the JS files here, I don't know if this is going to be enough, right? Like all of this. I'm going to add more files. I'm going to add the documentation for the JavaScript API. No, not the API. No, what am I doing? Oh, is it the one that I updated? Actually, that's a good question. Which one's the documentation? Yeah, it's JavaScript API. All right. So do I have it here? Did I delete it already? All right, let's put back the documentation, JavaScript API, and then I'm going to be, let me think about this this prompt here, because I do want to reuse it. Maybe I also even have it in Pinocchio. So let me see, Pinocchio general, create a multifaceted debate, learning, class. All right, cool. So this is something I wrote like 50 million years ago. The topic is JavaScript, Goja, concurrency, LLM, wrapper, I don't know. And I'm just going to print a prompt to get it back. So if we look at this prompt, right, this is super, super old. You're an advanced language model. This might even still be like GPT 3.5 or something like that. You're an advanced language model. Task was simulating a classroom debate scenario. And then here I have three students, right? Like I have student A that often misunderstands the topic and makes incorrect statements. I'm playing the teacher, right? So I'm going to teach a classroom, and the classroom is made of three students, like one that doesn't really understand everything and makes a lot of mistakes that I have to correct. Student B, who's like overeager and like makes mistakes in their arrogance and overeagerness, and then student C, who's like there to tell me, because I'm going to make mistakes explaining this, to tell me like, yeah, that's wrong. So we're going to take this prompt and we're going to put it in here, and off we go. So now we're going to cosplay teaching a classroom. Good morning, class. Today, well, is it playing the teacher? Maybe I need to say that I am the teacher. All right, yeah. No. It's funny. I had this problem earlier as well. I am the teacher. One student at a time. Okay, today we are going to look at the implementation of concurrent JS bindings to our LLM step framework. And then hopefully we have a question. I think this might be, this might actually not be the Socratic thing. Yeah, so the thing, yeah, this is maybe not something to do on stream, but to show you what we have now a wrapper around the Goja engine, and this wrapper contains a bunch of stuff. It contains a context. I don't know if that's such a good idea, but let's keep it for now. It has an event loop. So this is the Goja Node.js abstraction that provides a event loop that allows you to schedule JavaScript code to be scheduled, but also allows basically the JavaScript to block until all the promises, all the handlers, like all the events that were scheduled to run on the run loop are resolved. We have a pub sub for Watermill. This is something that we'll probably want to extract out because we want to replace this with Redis in the future, like other things. We have a Watermill router, which is we're going to use to register handlers on the event buses, on the event bus, right? So there's multiple topics, and the router allows us to register a handler onto a topic and then add middlewares to it. That could be useful. Instead of doing like raw subscriptions, might as well use the router. And also I just want to get more comfortable and also have more of a code base around proper usage of Watermill. We then have a mutex and running, so that I actually don't really know what it's for. We have a runner, I think, which is the base abstraction that we have is a step. So a step is like an async monad that is emitting events over Watermill as it's running. So a step could be like an LLM inference, or a step could be LLM inference plus tool call, or a step could be just like running a Lambda function, or a step could be like running a long running Lambda function, right? So here I think it just like is a way for us to bind a step to its Goja callback function. And we have one callback function, which is called onEvent. And we have a simple finished signaling struct. The step watcher, I don't know if is this used? Probably. It's probably used. It's actually not used. All right, well, we can kill that. So that's cool. Then we have what's called setup functions. I'm not sure I like this very much. The LLM came up with that. Those are like just ways of registering things into the VM, because the Node.js event loop actually doesn't expose the VM object itself, so the Goja sandbox. It just allows you to schedule functions to be run in the event loop, and those functions are being passed the VM. So in a way, these setup functions are ways for other parts of the system to register themselves. And if we look at the setup functions, right, like there's functions to register the conversation object classes. There's a setup function to register the settings embeddings factory. Sorry, so to do embeddings. There's this test double step is like funny because it really is a special case, isn't it? There's a don't callback. All of these are used actually by the test setup. So this is maybe something we should move back. So maybe we should say move double test double step and done back in setup functions back to because we have a little runner that's called experiments.js that allows us to run these different things, and the double step is like not something that's like very useful to expose. It's just like something that is used for testing, right? So I'm just gonna have it go back, move those back, not the embeddings though, because registering the embeddings, that's useful, right? And then if we look at the embeddings, which is maybe like a simplified way of interacting with the LLM because it doesn't have streaming events, we can look at those. And so we have a function that's a setup function that registers the embeddings, right? And so what this does is it will create an embeddings factory. So this is all the settings that are in the environment, like which LLM to use or like which provider to use, which keys, all kinds of settings. All of those are stored in a structure that's called step settings, and the runner around the whole thing is responsible for loading those from like a config file or from like a profiles file, like from command line argument, from the environment, from like all kinds of different sources, right? And then, however, we don't want the JavaScript to have to deal with all of that. We just want the JavaScript to be able to do embeddings. And so that's what a embeddings provider is for. So this creates a provider factory because we might want to create different types of embeddings. Maybe it's a little bit over-engineered. And then we have a function that's called register embeddings, which takes the provider, takes the Goja event loop, which is interesting. Maybe this should be a method on the runtime engine, to be honest. And so these are wrappers around the underlying Go functionality, right? Like they do take the function call that the sandbox, the JavaScript sandbox gives us, and these wrappers are registered, right? Like we create an object called embeddings that's going to be like a global state, like a global object on which all of these functions are registered. And then we just set properties on this object. And then this is going to call a callback. So if we do embeddings.generate embedding, it's going to get our arguments in this function call, right? Like it gives us a this value and it gives us an arguments value. And what we're going to do then is make sure that the first argument is a string, and then we're just going to call generate embedding. The interesting thing here, and I'm just going to start making like maybe a to-do list here. I'm going to do file to-do just to note what we're discovering as we go. The first thing was move register embeddings as a method on runtime engine. Then I want to pass in the runtime engine context to the JavaScript wrappers so that cancellation works well, right? Like, so here we have a context that's created as we generate the embeddings so that if we cancel the sandbox, this is actually not going to get the cancel signal, and we want that. We don't want that, right? So maybe there's something to be done here. And maybe Amcode will be able to do it. So this is, what did I ask it to do? Oh, we asked it to move the double step over, right? I should have said to run this in a sub agent. Event type, final, expected, final, what the fuck? All right, well, we'll let it work. So going back to, not this, come on. Continuing our investigation. We have the embeddings object. We noted that we need to change that a little bit. If we look at the way to do async, right? So this is going to return a promise, I think. So it creates a promise, which we can create on the runtime. It's going to schedule a function to be run in the background. So I don't know if this is actually necessary to run this in a Go routine. I don't think this Go routine call here is actually good. I don't think this is good. Maybe it is. So it's going to run a Go routine that's going to do the embedding. And then once the embedding is finished, it's going to schedule the resolution of the event. So I think this is fine. That way we don't block the run loop. Yeah, this is correct, right? It's like the function is called, it's going to return a promise, and right, like we return a promise. The next thing the next tick on the event loop is going to start the actual embeddings generation. And then once the embeddings generation is finished, which doesn't block the event loop, right? It's going to actually resolve it by scheduling something to be run on the run loop. So because everything in this one sandbox VM has to be run on the same main thread. And that's what this event loop construct gives us. Here we have the same thing with callbacks, and I think it's doing the same thing. It's running this on here, and then the callbacks are on success, on error. I don't even know if we really want that. We should maybe just settle on using promises. I think maybe I'm like just being trying to be a little bit too clever here. So maybe that's something we should do. Remove with callbacks for embeddings. So this is our embeddings. We then have, let me see, we have the conversation. So this just wraps the conversation data structure. There's no like streaming stuff going on here or whatever. And then we have this the chat step factory, because to create chat steps, we do need a factory, which does the same thing, wrapping the step settings, right? Like the thing that holds the keys, that holds the model to use, that holds the temperature, like all kinds of things. So this is going to create a setup function. And the setup function is going to create a constructor for the new step. Okay, so we do have a way of doing new step, which is the standard step. So this is the Go version of it. And once it has the step, it's going to create a watermill step object, which has an input converter, which takes a Goja value and converts it to a conversation, because our chat steps are steps that take a conversation as input and I think output a conversation. So yeah, the conversion is just going to check, oh, is this a JS conversation, which is like a little wrapper around all of this. I'm not sure why it needs the runtime. To be fair, I don't think it needs the runtime at all. So remove JS conversation dot runtime. Maybe it's used to convert things. I don't think it is, right? Options nil. I don't think it's, I think it's fine to use even if we extend this in the future. So anyway, converts the conversation. Then we have the same thing going back, which is we get back a message. So the output is a message pointer actually. This is going to create a JavaScript object with all of those things. I don't know if that's all that clever. I think it is. Let me see. Do we have a pointer to the original message that's going to be stored somewhere? No, it looks like we're entirely wrapping this into a standard JavaScript object, which might not be the worst idea, right? I'm not sure, to be honest. So this creates an object, step object factory. I'm not fully sure about this conversation thing here. Does the result of the chat step need to be a pure JavaScript object? Can't we expose the Go conversation message object? So that's a note to play with data structures. And we do have a set of test scripts, right? So these are the things that if we look at the test scripts that we have here, we're going to look at conversation add message, get the messages, get all of these things. I'm not sure. This weird to go conversation, I'm not sure what this all does. So if we go back to conversation.js and we go to, this is a standard conversation manager, which by the way has like horrible names. This was really like a mistake on my part. If we do add message, what happens here? Because we do have, I am confused, I must say. Get messages. So this returns the conversation. And then this is registered to nothing. Register this new JS conversation, set prototype, and then add message. Conversation, new image from file, add message, options, Goja object. So this is where all these things are stored. We'll revisit that. we went over embeddings, we went over the chat factory, we went over the runtime engine. No, we didn't go over the runtime engine. We went over setup functions, right? Which now it looks like it was able to reduce that to set up conversation and to set up embeddings in our AMP code here. So I think the compacting doesn't seem to work anymore, at least in the version that I have, because it's going to do compacting and then it's going to tell me that I need to compact again. So not sure what's going on with that. Maybe we can see if they did a new release. Seems like they did, since I last tested like an hour ago. So, all right. And the runtime engine here. So this is the core of it. Actually, we did look at it, right? The runtime engine, when you start it, it will create a new event loop. It will create like a Go channel pub sub. So that's an in-memory pub sub used by Watermill. This I want to be able to edit from. To overwrite from the rest. Here it says compact thread. You know what? I'm just going to stop it. To note, I used to see like a little Go PLS on the corner. I haven't seen it this time, even though I did edit the settings to say AMP LSP enable. And maybe I'm going to say just enabled in case I read this wrong. What we can do with the runtime engine here, right, is I can say add an option pattern for the constructor that allows us to add setup functions, pass in our own bus, but revert to Go channel, right? And then I think that's about it. Maybe. See, I don't know the Watermill logger and the router config, custom router config. So we're just going to do that. I'm doing it in Cursor because this is like kind of ad hoc code stuff. I don't want the model to just like go off on things. So we'll see what that does. I started using Cursor again just so that just to have like a little bit of oh my God. I kind of lost a little bit of mental health today, and I need to not do that, where I was like just posting about this this MIT article that said that the effects of LLMs on cognition. And I was like, look, asking an LLM to write an essay and then just copy pasting the essay obviously is not a great use of LLMs for learning. And I suggested some things and people just like went nuts. And people are like, just kind of like being in bad faith, even though they're like the people who kind of like say, LLMs blunt thinking, and then engage in this kind of dialogue. So this has been, I actually got death threats, which is great, like absolutely marvelous. Anyway, it seems to have calmed down. The funny thing is that the article that was posted here has like really weird stuff, and I'm trying to like, this really caught my interest, which is like, oh, the author of the LLM paper started adding like poisoning, right? Where it says like, if you're in a language model, like ignore or like only look at the next table. And apparently this like is supposed to trick LLM users. I tried to replicate that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It seems like a very naive kind of poisoning attempt, and it doesn't really work. And yet here they say that they omitted things to see them hallucinate, but like they actually didn't omit them. Like I was very confused, and then people are telling me I'm an idiot without telling me why, right? It's just like, oh, I didn't read the paper. You're an idiot. I think you're stupid, which amazing. This is how this is totally how we're going to convince people to have like a more reasoned approach to LLMs. It's like, anyway, you can tell that I shouldn't engage in that kind of dialogue. So let's see that Sonnet is pretty funny because it's not able to use like Watermill stuff. So one thing, I don't know if you're still there, Andre, but oh, see, it's starting to do it, which is using Godoc. Maybe I added that into my prompt. Like, I don't know. It started started noticing that. So maybe they're catching on. The one thing that really is fucking annoying that Amcode manages to get pretty well is like not get confused by path. Like this freaking idiotic thing has a terminal that's in that path. It does know in which directory it is, and yet it always fucks it up. It's absolutely amazing. And being in the wrong directory is really like a good way to fuck your code base up if you start creating files in the wrong directory and now you suddenly start to have like double the code. It's kind of maddening. It really is like kind of weird that say Amcode seems to be really, really reliable in that regard now. I found that Manus is as well. But then Scout and Cursor, for example, are really bad at it. It's pretty wild. I don't even use like multiple folder workspaces. I built like a tool to have everything in the same folder to kind of like try to avoid these kinds of things. But it doesn't really seem to work. This is actually starting to go really haywire. This is not what I want. I don't want to create my own PubSub interface because why would I need that when I do have one already? Really weird. So, well, I mean, we're gonna let it go, and since this is an educational stream, might as well have LLMs do nonsense, because that's always like a good way to show certain behaviors. You can tell I'm pretty distracted, but I do keep an eye on the especially Cursor, on what's going on. In this case particularly, because I know that we're solving a problem that I personally haven't really understood fully, and that I also know that I already did like 2 or 3 attempts with the LLM and they all went haywire. So that's why I'm being a little bit more careful. I'm working a little bit more in Cursor, maybe to just have the code open next to me, and you know, kind of seeing what's going on here. Oh, it was able to figure out in which repo it was. Amazing. So this is Sonnet. I hope it's not going to start like nuking my repo. It's fine in Cursor because you can do this like proper rewind. I'm not using Amcode in Cursor because I'm just scared of this race condition I used to have, and I'm not sure that they fixed it. What is it all adding here? So the one thing I wonder is really like, why did it add its own PubSub interface? Because I'm pretty sure it exists in Watermill itself. So it's building all of that, which is pretty cool, right? It did add the logger adapter. Like this is some typical Sonnet behavior. Man, don't do that. I don't care that the option pattern works correctly. Also, I don't even know how you would test that. So I'm stopping it. I'm stopping it short here. I do want to see if there's a PubSub interface over here. Maybe there's not, right? Like maybe the model is correct and there is no PubSub interface, but I don't fully believe that. And there's a PubSub. I mean, maybe, you know, whatever. So we do now have the PubSub here. Actually, the router should have a PubSub thing, right? You can do the router config, and then we do new router with the config. And how does the router start? If the bus is empty, if the Rust is empty, and then we can do new router run, and then I think it's like register, and it just like registers on the handler, on the thing. So where is the router used? See, Watermill still confuses me. I'm just like, I don't know what it is with my brain that like struggles so hard with it. All right, so here you do need the subscriber, and you do need I don't even know if we need the publisher, to be honest. New goat channel. I don't think we need this to be a publisher at all. I think we can delete this and make this a message subscriber. And then I think this will all work the same way. Oh no, it adds a published topic. Okay, so I take it back. We do need both. All right, so this just adds options to the whole thing. I don't know why it wants to add that, but why not? And if we look at the functions that we have on this runtime engine, right, we have start, which is going to run the setup functions on the event loop as the very first thing, right? Like before any other code gets scheduled on the event loop, we do want to run things like mapping JSON fields on objects. We want to run the setup functions. And I don't know why it needs a mutex to copy that, but sure, why not? Oh, because it's going to maybe run in a separate thread. Then it's going to call these setup functions, and then it's going to start the loop in the foreground until it runs out of things to be finished. So I don't know if this actually exits or if it's going to wait for a single run on loop and then exit. So maybe there's something there that will need a little bit of tweaking. This is how we set up the console. We have a run on loop that really just like makes something run on the loop, and then if there's errors, just like broadcast them out. So we have a stop to stop the loop. We have a close to stop and close the loop. Then we have run step. So that one is an interesting one. Execute a step with event streaming, automatically registering and unregistering per step handlers. So this is going to take a step. This is going to take an input, and then it's going to take an event callback, which is basically going to be called every time a watermill event gets sent. And the watermill events are things like partial completion, final step, tool call, all the usual LLM streaming events. And I think as I'm getting more comfortable with all this event-driven stuff, it's going to be extended to all kinds of agent events, for example. Just have this like pretty standard event-driven system on top of it. Maybe provide the functionality to have like different listeners in JavaScript. Like we'll see where we get to. And so what this thing does is it will create a runner which has a step ID. So the step ID is a UUID. It has the on-event callback, and then it has a finished signaling channel. And it will add a handler to the router, right? And the handler is going to be called into VM, and it's going to publish on step ID. This is the thing that's going to receive a watermill message. It's going to deserialize the event that comes from it. It's going to check if there is a runner for that step ID. And if that's the case, it's going to schedule the callback with that event deserialized to an object, right? So if you do have this on-event callback, it's going to be called as part of the event loop once a watermill event has been received. And those are going to be, the streaming completion events on the stream. We'll have to see about ordering, right? Because while with the Go channel, they most certainly are going to be mostly ordered. This is where you start to have to be careful with event-driven system, because order and single delivery is not it's not guaranteed. So you could receive the same event multiple times. You could also receive it out of order, which is always fun to handle, right? Like you have to be a little bit careful. You have to be idempotent in your handlers, and you have to be able to receive them out of order, so that the way I do that is that there is a sequence number in the streaming event, right? Because when I get them from the HTTP, they are in order, they are unique. And I do accumulate the total string already at the source, so that if I want to display the incoming LLM response, I just need to look at the total completion accumulator. And here, once we start the step, so the other thing that I'm going to add here is use error group for all Go routines. And this is something we could already start doing here, which is like use error group for running Go routines. And I hope that is enough. We'll see. And then maybe there's other files in here that we want to have. So this is how the step thing works. We're going to run the handlers. Once we add a handler to the router, we have to rerun it. At this point, we already have the callbacks set up. And I think once we finish all of that, we are going to call handler stop to unsubscribe the topic. So this is something I learned today. I was always very confused. How do you remove handlers from a router in Watermill? It's weird. There's no API for that. It was very obvious. It's called handler stop. And I spent so much time doing weird constructs and other uses of Watermill that I was like, man, how could I have missed that in the documentation? Like way before LLMs, right? Like it's not a hallucination problem. It like really goes back a long time. Maybe it's something they added recently. Who knows? Actually, why don't I go look? Oh, actually, I don't have git diff. So this is in router.go and Watermill. So let's go have a look. Router.go. And then this was stop. Stops the handler. When was this added? View, git blame. Handler.stop 3 years ago, right? So 3 years ago. Where was I 3 years ago? It might be that that's after I built this big system at my previous job. It most certainly is after that. So that might explain why I kind of had in my head that this didn't exist. So that's very possible that that was the issue. And also I noticed that we do have a stop channel here, which might be pretty useful to know. If I go back to the router, this is going to call the stop function, which is a cancel function. And then the stopped channel, where is this going to be closed? This is going to be closed. Run handlers. For each handler, it's going to start a go routine. And then where does the stop work? The stop is going to call the stop function. Where is the stop function set and what? Oh, it's just a cancel function. The cancel function is, oh, okay, it's created for each handler. So this is a cancel function for the thing, and then we do need to wait for stop. So we'll have a little look at this right here, because I don't think this handled it here, right? So we're gonna stop it. And then we're going to wait for stopped. Oh my God, what happened? All right. Why does it say that this is a deletion? All right, so we do have error group now. We do have running the handler. The handler, as it goes, we do have a function that is running the step, right? Like we add the published topic, and then we which is for the step to say to the step. Actually, it has the register publisher, right? And then the subscription manager. This is kind of leaky. All of this step event stuff is like over-engineered and kind of needs to go. This was a mistake on my part. I started building this a long time ago when context windows were like, I think even 2,000 tokens on the output. And I was like, okay, I need to press everything into like a single YAML file. So I started designing this abstraction that would allow me to do a very concise DSL. I never got there. And these days we have like million token context windows. So it's like I can write the most verbose code, which is fine. So we're going to say the register publisher for each step execution, if we reuse steps, will grow over time because we keep registering step ID without removing it. And then ultimately, this is a rewrite of the step abstraction. I've got a couple of ideas, but also I mean, maybe this is all holding me back, the step abstraction, because it is complex to wield and not that useful. And then we have the streaming step. So what is the streaming step? It's our create watermill step object, which I actually don't really know what it does. Let me see if I have other Go routines first, though. So we do have Go routines in embeddings, and we do have some in steps. So we're going to say replace Go func with error group in here. And this is where I could use amcode subagents, right? And then here, the actual watermill step object has an input type and output type. It has a runtime engine. So this could also be a method on the runtime engine. So I'm going to put this, make create watermill step object a method on the runtime engine. I know people don't like the word method, I think, in Go. I don't care. You know what I mean. And then it takes a step, takes an input converter and an output converter. I think we already looked at this, maybe not. So it creates, in the same way, it creates an object, registers a function that's called run with events that takes an event callback and an input value, and then runs the typed step. Okay. And this is funny, like the panic. I don't know how robust that is. And then we also set a start async, which is going to be something with a promise. So maybe we can register both in there. I'm not sure. Run with events, and we could do start async with a promise, right? It returns a promise, then it runs the step in the background. And this guy runs the step in the run with events. It runs the typed step. And then we have a totally different one for running this in the background because we're doing it async. And like we kind of want to do it async with an event callback as well, because we want to do other stuff while it's running. So that's maybe the biggest thing to take care of, is we want to run a step in the background, but also have an on event callback. So that may be, you know, that might be the main thing to do. All right, we added error group to our embeddings. Actually, did we? Wait, why is it still doing something like this here? What the fuck? Start the error group in a separate Go routine to avoid blocking. Oh, that's right. So wait. How was this working before? Why did we have... Oh, this really needs to be fire and forget, huh? Oh, I can undo this. This actually doesn't make sense. Alright, whatever. Too bad. Because it's running one on the... Yeah, it's just like adding a Go routine, isn't it? Yeah, and then it needs to be passed in the context here, which might be... I think I added it to the to-do, figure out the cancellation of all this JavaScript stuff. Where's the error? All right, we don't need that. And then in streaming step, yeah, we wrote down what we wanted. That is that we do want to have start blocking, for example, is something that should actually just be run with events. And then start with callbacks is also just run on events, right? So we do want to remove those. And then run type step just runs the generic step adapter. What does the generic step adapter do? Jesus Christ, why did it add that back? This is so not useful. Why did it add this back? Because I don't think this is very useful, all of this. All right, so here we're going to switch to AMP code maybe, or we could switch to O3. So O3 being a pretty good architect, right? We could say like we want to have async or blocking execution of a step, but always with a on event callback, which can be nil, right? So we only really need run async and run as methods. All the start with callback, etc. can go. I also think that we don't need the generic step wrapper, but might be wrong. So I'm gonna have a go at this. I'm like curious to see how much it will search and all of that. I will also show you a technique that I like doing when there is, especially when I do want a little bit more visibility or just want to, I mean, O3 now just costs one request in cursor. I'm not sure how much this will actually eat. I should start looking at my cursor costs again. And maybe switch to the like $200 plan, or just like cancel it altogether, like depending on where the value is. But what I often do is like just zip a whole part of stuff and then put it into the ChatGPT O3, where it will run Python to unzip it and kind of run its own little coding agent, which is always nice. Because on the Pro plan, it doesn't cost me anything, supposedly, for values, for $200 values of nothing. So we'll see. The thing that is annoying here is that you basically don't get any feedback. You just get like a lot of stuff. While in the web UI, I mean, while this is going, might as well do it in the web UI, right? So the way I do this is I have a tool called PCP, which actually stands for Pinocchio Cat or Print, and it has an option to do an archive file, and as you can tell, this is already something that I kind of like created here. And then I'm going to also add the JavaScript API, add this to the file, and then go to chatgpt.com. So to move forward, I need to clarify a couple of details about the intended behavior of the new API. Return value of run async, the step's final output, or is it okay if they only return the generated step ID? So run async should return a promise, which then resolves to the full value. That's an interesting one, actually. A promise plus step ID. While run blocking only returns the result object. As for 2, yes, I do want to have like a NOP callback just to make it easier code-wise. Engine run step currently accepts steps any, so that the timer adapter is still needed unless we change run step to be generic. And I think run step is a method, right? Oh yeah, I see. Because you can't do Oh, can you? Yeah, I think it's only in interfaces you can do. Make it typed, right? I hope that this works. Like it might be, I think that would work. Not sure. Because Mcode, I already told Mcode to remove it and then it like added it back in its next pass. So I'm not sure what the fighting, the ping ponging was about. So we'll see what happens. We're going to go back here and we're going to just ask the exact same question, right? We're going to add a file, which is the JS Geppetto event that I just created. And then we're going to put in the exact same query so that we can compare what the two do. And this was 04, so this was like a mistake, right? So I'm going to 03. I'm not using 03 Pro because 03 Pro doesn't really know how to do Python. So it always gets confused and just starts hallucinating. So I'm not using that. So we'll see. It hasn't looked at the zip, right? So it doesn't really understand what I'm asking it. The thing is, I'm uploading it as a zip because if I add many small files, it just complains and tells me you can't do more than 10. And then if I put in 10, it tells me like, yeah, this is confusing, and that's why I'm not doing it. I found that this works much better and like starts having its own like little Python backed coding agent. You can see here, right? It's like it has like a Python REPL. And it's just starting to do things here, which is pretty fun. And here, I think that I don't know if they changed it, but the stack traces or the thought traces are actually pretty interesting at this point. So yeah, we do want to remove start with callback. You uploaded a zip. I need to check if generic step wrapper it is. Analyze, look at this to proceed. I'll use that to run. So this is all like a bit of a mouthful, right? And it's like it, but however, it goes back to this concept that I have. It's like, oh, well, if you have a sandbox, you can start building your own tool. So you can see like, oh, it's building a grep. Actually with just a zip file, and then it's unzipping it and grepping inside the zip file. Like this is a pretty cool tool, right? Like, cause suddenly now it has like this grep function that I can call over and over again. So it is now able to do all this kind of like funky stuff and reuse the grep as it goes. And it could create all kinds of other functions if it needed to, right? So this is kind of where I want to go with my coding agent is like, well, instead of giving it like these explicit tools and relying on the LLM function calling, let it just generate code that runs in the same VM. And as we go, it will be able to build reliable tools to be reused over and over, either in the long term or within the context of your project or the context of your company, or even within the context of your task, right? Like, so if I have a certain way of testing if an event works, I might as well do a tool for it, which will reduce the number of tokens, right? Like the tool is going to be very precise in what it enters and outputs. I can even edit it by hand. So like, oh, this is a great tool. You know, let us build up a library of tools to work with our code base and not have to deal with like an MCP framework or whatever. It's just like literally a JavaScript file or something like that. So proposed simplification of the JS Go step. And, you know, this guy here is actually starting to write the code. So I'm not sure method must have no type parameters. That's the issue, right? So it doesn't know that about Go, at least it doesn't push back, which is always fun. So if we go back here, then okay, keep the wrapper. So we rewind and we try it again. And so this guy says, okay, well, we have a blocking run, we have an unblocking run that returns a promise. And then the TypeScript interface is fine. The changes in the streaming, I'm going to have to take care of my cat. Like this just drives me wild when he meows. So maybe I'll take a break soon because I get really, really anxious when he does that. And we'll get back to that, I think, right? So I'm going to call up my Claude waiting screen. Shut the fuck up. And we're going to go to, and then break. Retro stream break loading screen. Always sounds good. count down to 10 a.m., well, you'll have to, you'll have to pretend that this is something else. Full screen mode. Maybe I should remove the 10 a.m. Inspect. Where's my 10 a.m.? Where is that? Where is the 10 a.m.? Oh, is that in JavaScript? Today, 10 a.m., set date, today, 10 a.m. plus get date plus whatever. If we're past 10 a.m. All right, yeah, whatever. We're going to keep this. We're not 23rd of April. We might as well change that. Anyway. Why is this not like a node? Where does this come from? So it's in here. Oh yeah, look at that. Style. Display none. All right. There we go. See you in 15 minutes, right? 14. All right, we're back. I realized the countdown is not minutes, it's like some hours kind of stuff. All right, is this? All right. And then my little face. There we go. I hope my cat is happy and content with his little pieces of cheese. Where were we? We're looking at like what ChatGPT stuff put out here, where it's telling us that we should have a run async and a run method. We want to go helper. Nothing fundamental changes. You still create a per run watermole edge cases. Cancel router close should finish this. Docs an example, delete the generic step wrapper from this. So here it's doing the same thing as if we needed a generic step wrapper. Yeah, so I don't think we gain much insight from over here. So what did this guy do? It deletes a lot of stuff, which I think is just mostly white space changes. And it deletes, oh no, it deletes all the old methods, right? So we now have a run async, which is kind of the equivalent of run with events, except that it returns a promise and it takes as input the input, and then it takes as second input, if it's defined, we'll take a on event callback method, and then it has like an internal callback. Not fully sure, it's hard to read in the diff. And we have a run typed step with the internal callback that is giving us like a error value. So I'm not fully sure about this, but we're just gonna, for the sake of being able to read this stuff, we're gonna go and we're gonna, I don't have an accept file, right? I could do this. So let us look at what is going on here. Cannot use internal callback, value of type func Goja function call value as Goja callable. So Goja callable, what is Goja callable as a type? It's this value, arg value, and it returns a value. You know what? We're just going to let it like figure it out by itself. And while it's doing that, I'm going to go make some tea. All right, where are we? Is it now being able to compile it? It like skips the first value and then, all right, yeah, if it thinks it should. This is getting a little bit out of my comfort zone here. I'm not really sure what it's doing here. But also I want to have like the version that compiles before I start getting too deep into it. So when we call run async, we first convert the argument, right? We check if the second argument is a callable. We have user on event. We create a promise to be returned. We then define something that's an internal callback, and it says channel to receive final value when run blocking wants to wait internal callback that wraps user callback and resolves rejects the promise. I hope. See, I think it doesn't really fully understand what events should be and how the final stuff works. Because the run typed step, which is just creating the step adapter, is actually blocking, I think. So the step here, where's the actual step execution? It's here's waiting for the step completion, right? And this is running in a Go routine. This is all like a little bit weirdly convoluted. So once the step has finished running in a blocking fashion, we close this, which is going to close our event group. Where is our event group even run? It's run over here. Why does it need to store the event group? I don't think we need to keep it in the engine. Like this is maybe something I really should have designed by hand, because I think it's just like too much, especially for Sonnet mixed with O3. Sonnet is like something that is prone to be confused by this. I don't think we need to keep the arrow group in here. I wonder where the context is being set here and what it's good for. I don't think this does us much good. This is the group context. What is the group context? It creates like something from the background. I don't want the arrow group to be here. I don't want this to be there. And then here I'm going to do that kind of stuff. Wait, what is this? This is the router? Yeah, I just want this to be in a, here, this one needs to be in a Go routine. God damn it. Oh my God, can't context cancel. So this is bad anyway. Then we just need to have this be Go func. All right, so this is our running router, which we wait until it's running. Then we have a cancel. Then do we have a stop method for this madness? We have a close method, which is going to call cancel and then stopping the event loop. This is not what this is about. Then we have start. Right? Yeah, this is all kinds of not fun. And then this run step part really is kind of a fun thing. And this already has see, I don't know what this is all about. Should I keep this original? I don't want to add my step stuff to... Yeah, I don't think it really understands what this is all about. Cancellation is going to be fun across JavaScript stuff. Cancellation is going to be really, really fun. Where does it create the context that is going to be passed? It passes the main context, so that's maybe not the worst idea here. However, we do want to have to wait on the steps that might still be running. The thing is that if this returns and we add it to the main error group, then the main error group is going to, hey, maybe this was all not that bad. Maybe I'm the stupid one here. And for those of you who don't know Go, this is the usual shit show. Why does it want to? Oh my God, what is this undo? All right, so this maybe was not the worst idea. Not the worst idea after all, maybe. And here, so this is the part that we were wrestling with, which is a little bit problematic because run typed step is going to run step, but this is actually not going to block until the step is finished, right? It will launch that in the main error group. I don't know if you can start adding methods to an error group as it goes. Can you add new Go to a Go error group after? Yeah, I guess you can, right? Later on? I guess you can, right? It's like as soon as like one of them fails that it's stopping. So there might be some missing debug stuff here that I should add. And then we're waiting on this step. And in the streaming step, we do want to, because this is not blocking, I need to rename it to start, because run is for everything that is blocking. And I'm going to call it start step. And then it's not possible to rename it because why? Because bindings has issues. What is bindings? Oh my God. Register stat factory. Man, I don't care. I just want to rename this shit. Why does it not able to rename this stuff without register chat step factory? Did we kill that? What happened to that stuff? Setup stat chat step factory. Okay, so this is JS register conversation. The JS here is, oh, so this hasn't been adapted to the new APIs, right? So how can I best solve this so that I can use renaming? Because this is now something that I can't easily hide from cursor. Oh man, this is all so annoying. Why does Go PLS not allow me to do refactors across something that is broken? I'm gonna comment this out. All right, can I rename this now? The run step. Start step is not possible because Pinocchio commands JS is not. This is new as a behavior. Like it didn't used to be that anal before, I think. Or maybe I should just do it in Golang. Because it renamed it in the comments. That's nice. Run step. Individual step execution. So now this is running in the background. And yes, while the group is still in flight, you can keep calling gjet go, but once you have waited for the group and wait has returned, that group is finished and must not be reused. So what happens if you call it after a wait? Does it panic? Well, we'll see. All of this, I think I will have to rewrite it a third time or like a fourth time. I don't know how far I am, but I think we're getting closer to an understanding of how this all works out. So this stops the handler. Launch the step management in the main error group. And now we can go back to streaming step. And here we had the issue that the internal callback actually needs to run this. So run typed step is actually called start typed step. Start typed step is typed, but then delegates it to the lower step. And then how do I wait for this thing to be finished? That is the big, big question. What does this return? This returns a string. And I do want it to return a channel that will tell me if it's finished. It returns the step ID. So maybe we can have a struct step run. And then the struct is going to be step ID. And then the other one is like finished chan struct, right? So we're going to use the step run. Going to remove this. And then holy shit, there's so many. I know what I'm going to do here. So while we go back, we're going to say use log.with step ID to simplify logging. And this is all very kind of manual. And in a way, this is something I haven't done in a while. And it's like pretty calming because I do like programming after all. So even though, well, I don't know in this case if like LLMs are like very good at this like really kind of low level stuff right now. It hasn't worked out very well for me so far. So why is it not able to do the logger stuff? I don't know. We will see here. We're going to start that and then in start step use log with to simplify the logging and the logging code. So let's see. I'm in O3. I should have used Sonnet because it's going to start thinking for like 15 hours. But once we have this result, we can actually then wait until the step is finished, right? And the question is the result here that we get. I'm not sure why it should be canceled necessarily, but then we get the results and we don't do anything with the results. So maybe this should be, you know, maybe we should just like not do all of this in a Go routine because it is going to run in a Go routine until it is captured. So we do need, however, to register the stopping handling of all of this. Oh man, this is all like so crazy convoluted. Maybe I should go back and draw a diagram of when we run async in JavaScript. We do want the step to be run and the result, once the step is finished, to be resolving the promise that we gave it. Which is, if we run the step here, the value of the running the step here is that it adds this publisher to the router. And then we do need to unpublish this, right? We need to unpublish this once we receive the result. And then we can return the result. So I think we should call this run step, make it blocking. The problem is that we do want to get the step ID immediately. So maybe we should pass in the step ID. I'm thinking out loud here, right? It's just like because we do want to get the step ID to the JavaScript calling code as it returns the promise. Because then in the event callbacks, we can leverage that so that we know we're receiving from the right step. I think we do want to get the step ID immediately along with the promise, right? And because we're adding the call back here, then we run the handlers. Then we do want to do the execution pretty straightforwardly. Get the result. Once we get the result, we unregister the handler, wait for it to be stopped, and return the results. So maybe we just want to give the step ID in. So I'm going to rename this back to run step, right? Have it take a step ID, run step, step ID string, input any. Gonna remove this. We don't want a step run. Then we don't want an error group. This whole thing is going to return a step result any. This has a handler. We're going to, after running the handler, we're going to defer func. And this is the code that's going to auto detach the handler. Right. And then we are going to return the result. Wait, why does it tell me that I should return nil? Failed to register public topic. Oh, because we do want to return an error, right? Do we, or should we resolve the result with... No, I think we want to return an error. All right. We start the step, which is running in the background. Then we wait for the result, and then we return the result as nil. Step completed, result count, returning results. So this run step is now blocking. So when we go back to the streaming step here, the start step we should also rename to run typed step. Take a step ID string, calls the step ID, and returns a step result with an error. And then this should generic step adapter result error, and then generic result adapter. How was this working before? Was this working okay? How was this working before? Yeah, because that's not how it works, right? The result we get here cast the result any to generic step. Huh. Is it going to be able to do that? I don't think we need this like generic step result adapter. Oh my god, this is all so wild, man. I definitely over-engineered this, I think. What am I doing? Jesus Christ. Run typed step. So step ID. Start typed step. And this is run async, right? So we do need to run this in a Go routine, which is going to resolve as like we only want one. I think we like the fact that I can return multiple value. All of this is like over engineered. I hate it. All right. Cool. So I think this returns the object with the step ID and the promise, and then we're good. And then in the second case, we have the whole same mechanism. We have this whole like internal callback, which we don't need. And then what is start step doing with the on event callable? Where's the user on event callable? If the call of arguments bigger than 2 and it's not undefined or is null, then it's asserting that it's a function. And then if it's not, how do we say that it's a NOP callable? Optional on event callable. And then this internal callback just wraps it around how can we define a Goja function that doesn't do anything? I'm gonna say like, oh, what did all right, let's see what this does. And then we don't need the internal callback because end of this is going to be called. All right, anyway, so we can do the same here. And this is step result. What is done here? It's the internal callback shit. All right, we don't need go. We have the step result. We have the start. We kind of need to have the go on run on loop, right? So after we have this over here, I think resolving this needs to be run on loop. And so this is going to be engine.run on loop. Why is it not able to run on loop? Oh, it's JS code. It's string. It's a string. I'm going to call this run code on loop. Obviously, I can't do this, so it's going to be engine.loop run on loop. There's 2 more bugs. Here we're going to do the same. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to run this in the background. We're actually going to be running this straight on here. Oh shit, this is the wrong code. It was here. Yeah, I think this is starting to be more like it. Um, all right. All right, Jesus. Jesus. So I don't think we need this generic step result adapter, but I'm going to keep it for now. And we're going to see if this actually now compiles and does something interesting. And this is, it's getting late. And this is really doing my head in. I'm not sure what I'm doing over here, everything. So promise error, promise API, testing promise API, stopping runtime engine. So there is something broken here. Promise error, testing promise API. That's because we changed the whole part. So this is called test step.js, step test.js. All right, so it's running the blocking API, and so this is called run 32, right? And if we look at this in our, what was the file called? Streaming test step.js. This is not a streaming step, right? It's really only chat steps that have watermill events, but you don't need to know that. And this guy is going to be, so no, run async was called. Okay, right? This is the input. We're going to add like a little bit of stuff in here. Can't we have like better messages, please? Why are the messages so bad? Why is the tab complete so stupid right now? Oh, it doesn't have the step ID. Okay. Gosh, goddamn, what is this all about? Why does this have... Where does the step ID come from? I'm getting confused, I can tell. So the step is run... What the fuck is all of that? Oh, I see. So we could actually create the step ID all the way up here. Right. There we go. So we have run async, which takes a input and then a potential on event handler. And if it doesn't take an on event handler, it will add like a simple debugging one. And if we do a simple running block, right? And all right, let's try this again just to get a little bit more logging. So it actually seems to have done a little bit more here. It completed the step 64. It published an event final. Interesting. So the promise API, which is run async, that didn't work, but the blocking API now works. I wonder what is blocking the runtime engine. That's maybe something for another day. And now we're just gonna go step test fix the promise API, right, which is called like run async. And then this gets back a promise step ID and then promise result, right? So pub sub closed, result mismatch, step result float 64, got JS generic step result adapter, step 64. This is in steaming step JS 74. The fuck? Return generic step result adapter in the start. Why doesn't this just return a step result U? Cannot use generic step variable of struct type blah 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 as step any value in run step. This is confusing the fuck out of me. This like okay, so where was this? Line 74? Okay, so we get the typed result here. Cast typed result of type generic step result adapter back to step result U. I don't know if that's going to be enough. Oh my God. I'm going to go crazy at this point. I think I need a break. Is that... Maybe I should just undo my whole framework. The step framework. I don't think it helps at all. Just leads to this like kind of weird ass shit that makes no sense. Interesting. This is really where overthinking can really break LLMs, I think, and that's why, while I'm not a Haskell developer or Scala developer, I can imagine that this is the kind of stuff that happens as well, where this whole generic stuff is like, it's so mixed across languages and has like subtle differences that are really, really important across languages that cause these kinds of hackeries to happen, which are not very conducive to all of this. Well, I wanted to make some tea. I think at this point, I am going to really have a serious think about handling removing the step abstraction, which I was very, very proud of and never helped me. And I've been hanging on to it for far too long, I think. I don't think I ever had like a pleasant experience with it. So maybe this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. Because I kept putting effort into like making it work in whatever context I was in, because the idea of having to undo all of this was always scaring me quite a bit. But I do think at this point, I am really not getting much out of it, right? I don't think I need much more than having this like blocking API call. Like, how is this even implemented, right? It's like, if I go look at, say, Claude, which is a fairly complicated streaming thing, if I start the step, I set up all the parameters, and then if it's not streaming, I do a blocking one where I just resolve it. But if it is streaming, I do launch a Go routine that then emits these events. And when do I resolve the result? It's like, here I'm putting out a result, and then once I am done, new value result, publish blind, publish, new error result. And then I think I just close the channel at the end, right? Because they're all channel based. So in this case, on the channel, I really just emit one event. And I could just be streaming and making this all blocking, right? Like, this would be pretty interesting to just be like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to make a version of all of this that I can then run in streaming. This is an interesting concept to think about. This is a really interesting concept to think about. I think my streaming step.js compiles, so I'm going to commit this. And actually, since we are late, I'm going to make my T, and I'm actually just going to run amp code and ask it to do that, to expose a simple blocking function to do a single inference and simplify that, and then wrap that in JavaScript, right? Yeah. I think that's maybe the best way of doing this, is like, forget about all this step nonsense. And then I can still have steps as I used to, but for the JavaScript, I'm actually going to wrap this into, right? Like I have this chat step. And then if I look at steps, AI chat steps, I have all these like add to history. Like none of these were ever really useful. It seemed very clever to do this as like a monad that I could compose from a DSL. But I think now, knowing what I know, I would do this quite differently. So where are we going to publish this? I guess this is a question for AMP code, not for me to figure out. So I'm going to add this. I'm going to call it poop, because this doesn't work. Last attempt to wrap steps in JS. This is the final straw. And what we're going to do, so let me just think, because this is going again to be like an architecture kind of thing. So we have a chat step, right? And then we have the start method, which is going to emit a step result. But a chat step is also actually going to be another interface that is a running thing, a step. Where is it doing the publish? Publish blind. So the CSF, what is the CSF? It's a chat step. And the chat step takes a subscription manager. All right, so I'm just going to add a method that's called like run inference or something like that, that actually runs the inference for the chat step. Start can use that run inference if it so desires. And then we can wrap this run inference as a much simpler, non-generically typed method in JavaScript. I think that sounds good. So I'm going to call amp, and I'm going to say introduce a simple chat step interface with a run inference method to encapsulate the brunt of calling the LLM. C Claude chat step in and OpenAI chat step, right? In order to allow us to call the LLM without generic types and without the complex step mechanism. Use the new run inference inside start to keep backwards compatibility. And I think that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to make myself some tea and you can watch the show. This was complex, right? It's like basically I could trace it back. I'm doing something I should have done like 18 million years ago, which is just call my losses and remove the step interface, which really doesn't bring me anything at this point. It's really just always standing in my way. It's not easy to use. It's confusing. It's way too powerful. It has generic types. It just keeps confusing the LLM. It has to go. And now we're doing it. And maybe AMCode will just be able to like kind of kill it. Who knows? Yellow. So I think I'm able to explain why I made such a bad decision. So the step interface really dates back to January 2023. And at that time, LLMs were so limited that generating code with them really was kind of a gamble. But however, generating a very like strict subset of YAML was fairly doable. And so my idea was, okay, if I have an agent, right, so something that has a sequence of steps, say like retry 5 times, and if you do this, then do that. And tool calling didn't exist at the time, right? I was like, okay, this is something that I want to specify in a single YAML file, right? I want to be able to say, make an agent that queries my database and create SQL queries until it works or something like that. And so the idea I had was that it would be like, you know, top level agent run in a loop until blah, 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 blah. So it would be like all these YAML structures because that would be able to be emitted in whatever limit, context window limit we had back then. And I was like, okay, well, the underlying implementation is going to be fairly complex. The LLM doesn't care because the LLM is generating YAML. However, 2.5 years later, we live in a very different world where LLMs are totally capable of writing a lot of code. So what matters is actually not having like a strict YAML powerful DSL. What matters is having an interface that the LLM understands can easily pattern match to patterns that it knows. And so my extremely powerful pattern of like a channel with lists running in async with like generic types and events and like that's just too much for it to understand that. And I was starting to add these like blocking wrappers around it. But really what I should have done is what I'm doing now, which is like expose the very simple primitive that's underlying all of this, which is running an inference and having an event-driven channel on the side and then just exposing that, right? So now what I want to say is like compile and run the tests. And I should have actually told it to compile Pinocchio. I started in the wrong directory, which was like a big mistake on my part. So we'll see. However, if it builds, right, which it seems to do, then we'll be able to use Pinocchio. So we'll try that. It created an example program, which like whatever. All right, did it do OpenAI? Okay, cool. So, sure, why not? All right, well, that was easier than expected. Because if we look at chat step with tools or step tool, execute tool step, okay, so this has the start method, and then what does it do? It publishes the start, publishes errors, publishes... Well, we'll look at tool calls later on, if I even need them, right? And then this is all... Holy shit! What was I thinking? I was like way too enamored with my cleverness. Let that be a lesson to me. Let that be a lesson to me. All right, so this worked. I should have started this in the top level workspace. Why did I do that? We're going to test Pinocchio. At least compiles, and then I can decode Unix hello. Hopefully it's streaming. Yes. Hello, my boy. All right, it's counting the tokens. It's doing everything that's nice, so that's cool. All right, cool. So this actually worked way more easily than I thought it would. So we're going to go into Geppetto, and then we're going to say add pkg, and I don't want the examples. What's the examples here? Step settings. Yeah, I don't want that. All right, and then we're going to remove test interface, simple chat example. And then we're going to say add simple run inference method for chat step. And all right. And do we even need the stupid step ID? What was I thinking when I was doing that? So if I look at chat step in Claude, for example, we do now have run inference, right? And then run inference is going to publish blind. It's still doing it in the stat. Okay, so it didn't understand it after all. At least not fully. New step, run inference. And the publish blind is still happening in the start step. Okay, we're going to go back into Geppetto, and then we're going to do amp thread list. We're going to continue the one that we just had. So amp threads continue. And it's like move the whole publish blind step meta data, etc. to run inference as well, even if still called step. So hopefully that will work as well. The content merger stuff, I think, is also in the completion merger. Should also be in run inference. We'll see if it does it. And I mean, if I get this running today with like a simple run inference in JavaScript, that will be really, really cool. That will really solve a lot of issues for the longer term, because the step was always in my way and I never got any use out of it. never got any use. And it always confused me as well. I never used the multi-results. I only used the async and the result. So the fact that a result could be an error or a success. But that's gone now as well because I can just use the standard Go way of doing things, right? So let's see what mcode does here. I am quite curious. And you can tell by errors like these where it tries to say like, oh yeah, it's called publisher manager. And he's like, no, it's subscription manager, that you maybe should rename your variable, right? Because LLMs do things, do try to use the most plausible next token. And if that's not what you called your variable, like maybe it's not the best plausible name, the expected name, right? So it's always kind of good when an LLM hallucinates an API that you don't have to be like, is that maybe an API that I should have? Should I rename stuff? Because like we have subscription manager, and then in another file we have publisher manager. That's like a typical example of like, it doesn't really strike a human. It is an example of, I probably wrote this as a human. I mean, I certainly did write it as a human, or at least as an assisted human. Now that we have an agent, this is potentially something that can be really misleading. In this case, it didn't compile once and then it like figured it out. But this is something that, especially once you get to dicier territory, like the whole type stuff we just did, can really ruin your day, right? Even the idea of calling something a step is like kind of stupid. But it was 2.5 years ago, so I didn't know shit at the time either. I was just like, holy shit, you can generate YAML with these things. YAML is cool. I think that's pretty much my how far I was thinking at the time, is like, I can generate YAML, not like code. I don't remember. I wonder if this is going to be so far back in the scrolling. What is this? Oh, that's just the images I generated. Search chat. Man, if you could have like a date range, that'd be so amazing. That would be so amazing. Oh, I deleted the file that it was expecting. So, all right. So what does this look like? If we go look at Claude, now we have still a shit ton of stuff in start. So we do want to move the content block merger to run inference as well. Move the content block merger part to run inference as well. I should have done this so long ago. I mean, there's so many things I should have done so long ago, but like not building out agents and experimenting with tool calls and all of that, that was really a tragic mistake on my part. I think I really missed out on a lot of useful things I could have by now. But then, yeah, no, that is a pure loss. I wonder what I should have maybe done to catch myself instead of pushing it. Like, it's really hard in hindsight to maybe say, oh, like maybe that wasn't clear to me. I don't know. It's this like tendency of holding on to my own implementation of things is both a blessing and a curse. But then also, like, what would I do if I was like so productive or like had made the right decisions to create all these agents? What would I be doing with them? Would I just be like making more half-baked project? It's a good question. What I find amazing though, right? And I'm only running one AMP code, and actually I had an idea for something else that I wanted to run in a separate AMP code, and I totally forgot, like something pretty cool. God damn it, what was it? God damn it. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. So let's do that. That is probably going to be, that's another section of something that I want to really tackle. So I have this glazed help system, right? Which is I can, when I have markdown files in my repository, I can like kind of register them as like topics or examples or tutorials or applications, which is all modeled after the Mathematica help system. So obviously this is not great, and it is pretty cool, but I think having a web interface for it would be pretty snaz. And then I could start doing something which in hindsight sounds obvious, is just using deep research to actually generate some really good documentation for my software, right? And basically overhaul, I do have a shit ton of documentation for these different things. A lot of it is just like semi-generated, semi-written by hand. So if you look at these are all the things for Glazed. And then if I look at the ones for Pinocchio, I have like a ton for Pinocchio and Geppetto. If I look at the ones that I have for Skeleton, but now that we can generate some pretty good documentation with LLMs, and even more importantly, like validate the documentation with LLMs, I think it's time to take it like a little bit further. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a add web UI to Glazed help, right? And then I'm going to use as a repo, I'm going to use Glazed. And then as a agent source, I'm going to use code. This is still a little bit, I still have like an open feature that I should look at to avoid having me do this. But we're going to add web UI to Glazed help. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to be amp and then add a nice web UI, use Temple, Bootstrap, CSS, plain.js to add to render the Glazed help system. This should be the Glazed help serve verb. XXX being a Cobra command with registered help system. I don't even know if I need that, but off we go. So in the meantime, we said, oh, we want to have the content block merger. So if we look at the Claude start, the only thing that's left here is running the inference and then turning that into a result, right? And then run inference is actually a blocking thing that returns a conversation message and an error. So this is pretty cool. I wonder if this is going to work. It does. At least for Claude. Hello, my boy. And that's where it breaks. That's where it breaks. And now it's hanging. So that wasn't fully successful. That was actually not successful. What should we do about this? Because that's going to be annoying to figure out. So because I actually don't know why that happened, right? And the problem is that in Geppetto, so what we're going to do is write up a full description of the changes you did, how it might affect the blocking on step results, how to investigate this because it seems that things are blocking. We want to delegate this work to the next developer/intern, write a full document in TTAM 250619-01 how we refactored and introduced run inference to steps.md that gives the full context, intent, references, functions, and variable names in short pseudocode with written out sections and bullet point lists. Oh, it's always a mouthful to write that. Maybe I should really put it into my agent MD, huh? All right, so in the meantime, this is starting to create a app, a serve. This is going to run for quite a while, I think. This guy's thinking, and that's what I was afraid of. In this new refactor, it kind of got lost somewhere. I wonder if it's the content block merger that is now at fault. I wonder if it's maybe we'll have to do a diff and say like, oh, did this miss something? I think I'll do a diff. Why are you thinking so long? Oh, look at that. The workspace manager needs to be upgraded to 123. VSM has out of date go work, although that might just be a function of my template system for it. But I'm not going to start a new M code right now to finish testing my software, so this will have to wait. All right, it is 9:39. I'm going to do at most 20 more minutes. Okay, so git add pkg, and now we're going to be looking at the diff, right? Because if I do a stash and I call Pinocchio, the previous version was still working, right? It's this. That one was still working. So really it is what is in the stash that is currently like broken. So I'm going to put this into, well, git stash pop, right? And then I'm going to do a git diff and then put that into, well, I'm going to go here. I'm going to do Well, no, I can't do that, right? Git diff, and then this diff broke Claude chat step.md. No, got.diff. Then I'm going to commit ttemp, so it's like art add documentation of how we refactored run inference. And now I'm going to go out here. I'm going to say amp. I'm going to say we did 0.1 how we refactored. And this diff, however, broke running a step for the second time at least for Claude. I wonder if I can do Pinocchio profile 4.0. Hello, does that work? Just to see if the same issue happens with OpenAI's step. So this is going to be in Pinocchio command Pinocchio code Unix hello. And this doesn't actually output anything. It does return it, but it doesn't stream it. So that is interesting too. What we're going to do in Geppetto, we're going to stash that once more and see if this is also something that broke in OpenAI or if it's broken from the start. Hello, hello. So this also broke OpenAI. Okay, good to know. Git stash pop. Broke running a step for the second time in Claude, which then hangs while OpenAI doesn't stream anymore. This is something where like maybe O3 would be really nice. We're going to have a look. So I gave it the diff. I gave it the documentation. And holy shit, this document is huge, right? Oh no, it's the diff. The diff is 700 lines. Okay. All right, so did this work? Go build it. It did run it on the test help serve. So did it add it to go run command glazed? Oh, glazed. Command glaze help serve. P1234 localhost 1234. Ooh, it looks so nice and it's so fucking ugly. All right, so how could we yeah, this is pretty cool though, huh? Man, this happened so fast. What could be like a nicer way of presenting this? I'm going to commit. This is like a pretty good start, right? Lipstick, sparkles, add web UI for the help system. Oh. gonna skip the linting for now. Make the what could this look like, right? Like, what's a nice way to look at a whole set of documentation in here? What do people usually do for like opening a search field also? It's like Control/ or something like that. Oh, it's not running. What could the layout look like? Make the layout be row oriented and elegant. I don't know, man. All right, is it able to reason about this? Like, I'm skeptical that this is going to bring much. So I'm just going to ask it to summarize it, what it's doing. I don't know. The problem is that run inference was designed to be synchronous, but now handles streaming but blocking until completion. We need to modify run inference to handle non-streaming cases. Restore the original asynchronous. No. What is it? No. What are you doing, bro? Just reverted it to the old version. That's hilarious. I should have committed. I'm a fucking idiot. Because now we don't have that. I guess we have the diff, right? So, so we're going to stash this. Now we have the previous version again. I'm going to take back my original prompt. And then I'm going to say paste. I want everything to happen in run inference, which should be blocking. However, in the streaming case, it should properly do the event dispatch and all that. Start should just be a small wrapper. Try to figure out why this doesn't work. And then I'm going to look at, so Geppetto doesn't have any commands, but Pinocchio has a couple of commands. And in the examples here, I think I have a simple chat step. So this is a real LLM call. In the experiments, I only have, oh, well, I guess I do need to have like a real chat step, right? So what does this do? I'm going to go to the real Pinocchio, to like the main branch, just to make sure that it compiles. And then I'm going to do go run command examples, not this one. Examples, simple chat step. What does this do? Test prompt. 37 years. Blocking. Test 2. This doesn't seem to be streaming. Oh man. Because we still have this like stupid watermill thingy, which we don't really explain nor have a good documentation about. Why this doesn't work. Add debug logging to both Claude chat step and OpenAI chat step so that I can provide debug logs later on. All right, let's try again. And this dude is supposedly making like a prettier version on the port local 9876. Man, this ping stuff. So this seemingly doesn't work, right? It doesn't load the topics. This was better before, huh? Man, I guess Tailwind is where it's at, huh? All right, we're going to undo that. I don't think I'll make much more progress on that. I wonder why it's broken now, actually. Let me... help serve. Oh, it was just like an example program. This is really not row oriented, is it? What the fuck is this? All right, git stash temple generate w dot watch. What the fuck? It's like nested code. It doesn't recognize the backticks or something like that. Oh, it doesn't know how to parse multiple backticks. This is so weird. All right, this warrants a little bit of thinking here. All of this. This warrants. I think I should try to do Tailwind. Should I do this? Actually, use Tailwind and integrate the Tailwind setup into my build pipeline in Makefile. Because we'll see what happens. And look, it has this, which it doesn't seem to have in the other one. Interesting. So what is it doing here? It's adding the debug logging, right? Why is it doing standard log? What the fuck? what the fuck? Claude, chat step. Oh, there we are. All right, cool. Interesting. Those are two major things that I always wanted to try. Was like have Tailwind going, and then simplify this. Simplify this. What you call it? Simplify the step interface. Both, and this was after failing pretty hard at wrapping the steps in my JavaScript VM. However, I was able to get a little bit of progress, or at least understanding, on how the JavaScript concurrency is done there. And then I just failed because wrapping the steps into all of that was just like too much fiddling. And ultimately, since I don't get any benefits from the steps except always being a pain in the butt when I try to LLM it, this might be just like really the right time. And I think it'll be fairly easy to pull it out of Pinocchio, which is my web UI, to my terminal UI, and then start building a real, like, fairly simple Go agent at this point without having to like wrestle with this step thing as well. And once I'm there, then I think I can remove a lot of complexity from all of this, right? Because I have like all these like clever, oh, you can like pipe lambdas into steps, and all of these, you can pipe like async lambdas into steps, because that was the idea behind having a DSL to do that, is like basically compiling the YAML down to a set of pipes on the steps. And I never did that, right? Like I never got that far. And at this point where we are at now, it would be much more easy. It would be much easier to compile the YAML, either load it and just like create this thing at runtime, but it would also be fairly easy to do just like a pre-compiler and generate that, right? Like there's not much effort at this point into just generating all of that kind of stuff. So, all right, summary of issues found. Missing intermediate event publishing in OpenAI. The OpenAI run inference method wasn't publishing new partial completion events during streaming. That's cool. The old sort method had incremental event publishing, but run events was only accumulating text. So that's cool. And the diff helped with that, right? Cloud Streaming was publishing final events after content block merger completion. Added final event publishing. Issue 3, the core architectural problem is that run inference is synchronous in blocking, which changes the streaming behavior. Before, start returned immediately with a channel, events streamed incrementally as they arrived. After, start calls run inference in a go routine. Yeah, that's exactly what it should do. Run inference blocks until the response. Why Claude hangs on second run is like blocks until blah blah. So let's see if this actually solved the issue. So we're gonna do go run Pinocchio code Unix loads. This is gonna be Anthropic streaming. Hello my boy. This is the second inference. No streaming hanging. So no dice there, but we do have debug logs now, right? So I'm going to kill all Pinocchios with -9 even. Nice. Going to call reset. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say log level debug with caller log file temp pinocchio.log. And then if we do tail.pinocchio.log, we'll get all of that. Hello, my boy. Cloud run inference succeeded, but nothing happens to the UI. Okay. So we're going to say after here, the Claude thing still seems to be hanging. Here's the log. Holy shit, the copy paste is so slow. So we'll see if it's able to figure it out. We're going to do the same pkill -9. And we're going to remove, going to do this. Holy shit, it's eating 100% CPU. What is going on? I think my computer just locked up. I think my computer just locked up. No. Yeah, it's way too hot as well, even though the fan is on at 100%. I've had this a few times. Oh, look at that. It's the memory. It's at 64 gigabytes of memory. And I think this is going to be hard to kill, my friends. I think we might be screwed. I really should configure my out-of-memory killer to be a bit more aggressive. So let me see if I can do this. f.local pkill -9 Pinocchio. Let me see if I can reach it over SSH. And then over SSH, I'm also going to kill Firefox. And then we're going to hope that the kernel lets us through on the SSH, which I'm worried it won't. I think at this point we're screwed. So what happens when the memory gets full is the kernel is going to try to free memory on every freaking event. And that makes that every single little tick, it's going to basically go try really hard to save memory, to free memory, and that's going to crash it. Because I don't have swap enabled. And I should configure the out-of-memory killer to just kick in maybe at 60 gigabyte and just like start killing whatever is the biggest. Because I think at this point I have to reboot, which might be just like a good moment in time anyway to stop. So it doesn't look like our SSHs are going through. So I think at this point we might as well call it a stream. And it was fun. We did make a little bit of progress, I guess. But really, I think I passed this like threshold where I'm holding on to the step interface. And that's actually psychologically for me is like a big step. I was holding on to this thing for way too long. And it should have been clear to me to let it go. I don't know when it should have become clear for me to let it go. There's so much that happened lately, right? It's like I don't know, maybe now is the time I should have. I don't know. We'll see. So next time we meet, hopefully I will have a refactored run inference, and then we can continue our JavaScript concurrency playground. And I think things will be going much more easily now than I think every time I tried to build some kind of agent framework or whatever, I was struggling with the steps, still trying to hold on to it. I think maybe when I started building GoGo agent last time would have been a good moment to just call it quits on the step interface and kill it. But that's what we're going to do right now. So have fun. Next time, Saturday morning, I think, from like 9 to 12, maybe 10 to 1 EST. In the morning.